Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we move on to the horses that changed their handicap mark, or some of them actually didn't, but they're going to be talked about over fences. So we'll start off with Captain Noor, who dropped £1 to 134. I understand why they went to Aintree. I'm hoping that's because Christian Williams thinks he's got the winner for sure of the Bet365 Gold Cup. Kitty's Light, maybe. I think he should have gone to Kempton, to Sandown personally. He was so well handicapped with the other four that beat him last year. I think he would have gone very, very close. They might still end up there. If they do, off his 134 mark, then he would definitely be interesting. I just think 2 weeks might come a bit quick. And I think they'll leave it till next season. They've won a decent race with him this season, so they can't be disappointed. They won the 85,000 first prize for winning the Gamble Trophy Handicap Chase. That could be where they go again next year. Spread out the wins for their horses. Kitty's Light to the Bet365 Gold Cup this year and hopefully try and win that. The danger there would obviously be Enrillo. Just keep an eye out for him next year at Kempton. If he runs a couple of poor races next season early on, he'll drop in the handicap. And, I think he's well handicapped still now, 134. When everything falls right. It fell right at Kempton. If they get him to drop a couple of pounds before a return next season, he would have a huge chance. He's one that is definitely staying in my notebook to keep an eye out for where he runs and what he might be aiming at. Second horse that's in my list is Correct Rambler. Now, he actually just dropped £1 due to collateral, down to 147. I thought that's very kind. Scottish National next season. They don't have to do a lot now. Off 147, they can aim him at very little. Probably, could aim him at graded races next year. See what happens. If not, end up in the Scottish National at the end of the season. But that drop of £1 would be, very helpful when he comes back to a handicap, or next time he runs in a handicap. 5-Star Getaway ran a moderate race at Aintree over the national fences in the Topham. He finished 14th. The ground was just far too lively for him. You can see his better form has definitely come when he's had a bit of cut in the ground. I do think he's quite well handicapped off 132. I am a big fan of that Kempton form. 5-Star Getaway, Kitty's Light, Captain Noor, Enrillo, Beakstown. All that form I think is really strong. When they get the conditions, they will go close, all of them. Beakstown's already won since. Just wants a bit of cut in the ground. I'm not totally sure where I would aim at 5-Star Getaway, but that's not my job. So I'll still, offer suggestions or explain where I think they should run. But I don't totally know where I would even send 5-Star Getaway at this current stage. They might even go to France. I wonder if there's French racing, there's often a bit of cut in the ground. Could be that they could go to France with him, potentially. Obviously, he could come back for the Kempton race that he won last season. Kitty's Light behind has franked the form. Fortescue has franked the form. Phlegmatic has franked the form. Captain Noor has franked the form. It was a good race that he won. So I think the fact that he's dropping back down, he's down to 132 now. He is well handicapped. Just needs that bit of cut in the ground. Moving on to For Pleasure, as I mentioned in a previous video, had no chance in the Grade 1 at Aintree. Handicapper still was kind enough to drop him £1 to 136. I think this is where he'll end up beginning of next season at Cheltenham, over 2 mile in a handicap. Off 136 in a handicap, I think he can go very close. I think a lot of people did as well, or there was certainly a lot of money around for him on Grand Annual Day. 25s into 7s, ran no sort of race, didn't get to the front. Didn't go to the front again. I think next time in a handicap they will go to the front, and I think he'll take all the beating. To be honest, off a lowly mark of 136, I think he's better than that. Gunsight Ridge was another one of ours that was really well supported. 14s into 4s, ran no sort of race at Aintree. I think there was a few horses over the course of a few days that ran really poorly. You can even look at the likes of Long Press and Brave Man's Game potentially. Not running their races. Gunsight Ridge was one of those that ran a really very moderate race, pulled up early on, dropped £1 to 133. I hope Gunsight Ridge goes to this race at Newbury. He'd be right near the bottom of the handicap. It's worth a reasonable amount, 20 grand, and I think the type of race would suit him. It doesn't often feature those incredibly well handicapped horses that go on to win future graded races. None of these really have. Ferro Bamboo keeps running reasonably well in handicaps, but isn't winning. Numitor hasn't done anything. Ilwadoto, after winning here, you hoped he would end up in graded races, but he wasn't good enough. So this, I think, would be a nice comeback run for Gunsight Ridge. Mr. Coffee, I'm still convinced with Mr. Coffee. He jumped out at Aintree, missed the start, ended up towards the back of the field and was never involved. I think they'll step him back up in trip. Obviously, he ran a really good race at Cheltenham in the Kimya. It looked like he was going to win for a long time. Samway Cohen was holding his win back until Aintree rather than winning at Cheltenham. He dropped £1 to 140. This is where I hope he runs. There's a 3 mile 1 race in October, middle of October. 3 mile 1. I mean, look at these horses. Are these from this year the type that have gone on to graded races? No. That's where I think Mr. Coffee should be aimed, and I would expect him to. If Mr. Coffee turned up and these were his rivals, I'd be very keen on Mr. Coffee taking all the beating. And then I do genuinely believe he'll end up in the Hennessy, or the Ladbroke Trophy as it's called now. Royal Pagaille dropped £1 to 163. That's the same mark as when he won the Peter Marsh. And interestingly, the Peter Marsh was a good race. Sam Brown has obviously come out and won at Aintree. Fortescue has come out and won and then disappointed in the Grand National. So with that in mind, I said on the day I thought Remastered had run okay. It wasn't a bad race at all. Probably just got a bit tired, and I was keen on him to run in the Ultima. I still believe Remastered ran a good race. The horses, as I said, Royal Pagaille is a graded horse that can only do it in the handicaps when he gets his soft conditions. Sam Brown is now up £10 from that day, and Fortescue is still up 5, despite dropping £2 for his run in the Grand National. Remastered has dropped. Remastered is actually £4 lower than when he ran here. So if he was taking on Sam Brown, he'd be £14 better off. It'd be 9 better off with Fortescue, and it'd be 4 better off with Royal Pagaille. Now, if it came up soft ground, I don't think it beat Royal Pagaille. But I do think it beat Sam Brown and Fortescue. I think he went well for a long way. And if they drop him back to 3 mile, he's one that I'm keen to see back over 3 mile, over fences. They've been running him up. I think they thought it was a poor effort, so they went hurdling at Aintree. Didn't totally understand that. I thought it was a plenty good enough effort in the Peter Marsh. Unless they have something in mind for him and they ran him over hurdles just in case he had a decent handicap mark over hurdles. So keep an eye out for Remastered as well, particularly next season when he's around the 3 mile trip over fences. Itchy Feet. I was disappointed that Itchy Feet actually didn't drop for pulling up in the Betway Bowl. He's still rated 150, which means he's £3 lower than when he was second in the Monet's Garden at the beginning of last season, or beginning of this season, at Aintree. He would be £1 worse off with Nutswell for 4.5 lengths. So I don't think Itchy Feet would be beaten by Nutswell, and he would be £3 better off with All Mankind for about 3/4 of a length, I think it was. So Itchy Feet, I think that's where they've got to aim him. Go back to Aintree in October for that 2.5 mile Monet's Garden handicap chase. I want to talk about Santini because he actually dropped £2 for his effort at Aintree in the Grand National. And I just wonder whether next season they're going to campaign him slightly differently. With the Grand National in mind. He ran in the Gold Cup. He ran, and you could actually say he ran in the Gold Cup and he travelled really well for a long way. Any Second Now didn't run at Cheltenham, whilst the winner, Noble Yates, was never cited in the Ultima. He may have turned up there nowhere near ready, whereas Santini, I think they did turn up for the Gold Cup ready. Delta Work, they did turn up for the cross-country ready, and both of them may have just left a little bit at Cheltenham. And if you watch it from the second last, those 4 were all going just as well as each other, possibly Delta Work and Santini going better than the other 2, and then those 2 got left behind. I just wonder whether next year they might do the same sort of campaign, December, January, but then not do the March race. Save him for Aintree. If he turns up off, he's currently rated 151. If he turned up off 150 or lower, I would be very keen on him to run another big race. I thought first time round over the fences, he did a really good effort for 4th, and I just wonder whether there could be a slightly different campaign next year for Santini. Brave Man's Game disappointed at Aintree in the Mild May, and he dropped £3 down to a mark of 161, which is very interesting. If you go back and watch, I think it was when he was winning at Newbury over 2.5 mile. I said, the first time he went over 2.5 mile, I said, do you know what? This horse reminds me so much of Denman. Now, Denman won a Hennessy, or a Ladbroke Trophy, off a mark of 161, which is the exact mark Brave Man's Game's got. Brave Man's Game won a handicap at Newbury off a high weight. I think it was 158 on that day when he won at Newbury. So he knows how to carry the weight. That's not an issue for him. I think we might see Brave Man's Game in the Ladbroke Trophy next year, and off 161, the same mark as Denman. If he wins it, for me, having said he reminds me of Denman, it's almost perfect, and I'd be very keen on him in the Ladbroke Trophy next season at Newbury. This was it this year, won by Cloudy Glen. The next horse I want to talk about is St Calvados. Now, he's an interesting one. He's dropped £3 down to a mark of 157. I don't know why they're running him over 3 mile, or now even in graded company. He's not a graded horse, and he's not a 3 miler. The race that really, really interests me next season, it's got to be all of these handicaps. This was him the last time he ran over 2.5 mile at Cheltenham in a handicap off the same mark as what he's now rated. He finished 2nd to Old Grangewood, beaten a nose or a neck. Let me just check. He was beaten a short head by Old Grangewood, and this was in the other time he ran over 2.5. Whoops, I've got the wrong one. The other time he ran over 2.5 at Cheltenham is here. He was beaten a neck by Min in the Ryanair in front of Aplutan, in front of Frodon. That's where they've got to go with him. Go to these 2.5 mile handicaps at Cheltenham in the lead up to the Cheltenham Festival. I actually found this by going to Call Cody and going through all of his races. So 90 grand for this one. 74. 57 pretty much. 56. 67.5. Obviously that's the Ryanair. So, good prize money. Might as well just run him in all of those races next season and hope he wins one of them. If you pick up one of those, next season with St Calvados off 157, job done for the season, really. And the final horse is Sky Pirate now, who he dropped £3 to 150 after finishing 4th at Aintree, and I thought that was very lenient. He won the Grand Annual off 152. He ran okay this season, although he finished 11th. He ran well for a long way-ish before, getting tired. And I just think he hated the ground. He didn't want that heavy going. That'll be the target next season, the return to the Grand Annual, and I think he'll go very well next season. I think we might see him running in graded races up to that to make sure he either wins a graded race or his handicap mark doesn't move or even drops before turning up in the Grand Annual again next season. And I wouldn't be against Sky Pirate in next season's Grand Annual. If it was good to soft sort of thing, and if he turned up off 150, I'd be very keen on him, to be honest. So there's a few horses over fences. I'm pretty sure this is me just showing you the Grand Annual. Captain Nor, I think he's well handicapped, just needs the right conditions. Corrick Rambler for the Scottish National. 5-star Getaway, keep an eye out for soft ground for him. For Pleasure, wants a handicap. Hopefully this one in November. Gunsight Ridge wants a handicap. Hopefully this one in Newbury in November. Mr. Coffee, I'm still convinced he's a better horse than what he's shown. Back up in trip next time, hopefully at Cheltenham. Royal Pagaille, keep an eye out for Royal Pagaille in a handicap, and also remastered when he goes back over fences. Itchy Feet, Monet's Garden. Santini, I think, will get a different prep next year for the Grand National. Brave Man's Game for the Ladbroke Trophy. St Calvados for those 2.5 mile handicaps. And Sky Pirate for a season aimed at the Grand Annual. They're my thoughts for the horses over fences. Thanks for listening, and fingers crossed that there's a few there that I've highlighted that go on to win later this season or early next season.